Tribe, I'm so excited that we're going to be catching up with Sarah Davis, who we last spoke to at the beginning of 2019, and the episode came out on the 28th of May, and Sarah shared more about her expedition of Paddle the Nile and more about her life and what she's been up to. But Sarah, for those who haven't heard the first episode, I'd love for you just to sort of introduce yourself and tell me just a little bit more about you and your background.
Well, thanks very much for having me back, first of all. Yeah, so my background, well, like we said, I did the trip down the Nile. So that was something that I did, October 2018 to 2019. And it was a trip that was a mix of rafting and then kayaking. So I did about 1,100 Ks of rafting, 3,000 of kayaking, and all manner of dramas on the way. So, we had the hippopotamus attack, getting detained in Burundi and running crazy rapids and everything else. So that has sort of been, that was the culmination of years of, really enjoying adventurous holidays and adventurous trips and love of kayaking that sort of led me to doing that sort of huge adventure and then just wanting to do more sort of adventures and hence more recently went and did the Murray.
Oh, fantastic. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So tell everybody a little bit more about the Murray expedition, the Murray River, how it came about and why you wanted to paddle it.
Well, look, as I say, having done the trip down the Nile, it was one of those, like, is this going to be just a, tick, done a big expedition and that will be it? I mean, I knew the likelihood was pretty unlikely that was going to be it. And it was more likely going to just sort of make me want to go and do more, which was the case. And someone suggested, was like, well, Sarah, why don't you, do a source to sea on each continent? And I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting, and sort of helped focus me on what do I do next? Because, of course, there's so many incredible adventures you can go and do out there. So I decided that, that sounded like a really good thing to start thinking about. And I was adamant that I really wanted my next trip to be something at home in Australia. And so then I was like, okay, well, let's have a look, and decided to do the Murray River. And that's about 2,500 Ks. So it starts in the Snowy Mountains in New South Wales, and then it basically forms the border all the way between New South Wales and Victoria, the two states there, until you hit South Australia, and then it comes out in the Southern Ocean, just south of Adelaide.
How long did you give yourself to plan, train, prepare before you headed off to go and do it?
Well, the thing is, having done the Nile, like, that was logistically so complicated. I was fairly laid back about this, because it's kind of like after the Nile, anything was going to be relatively straightforward to organise. So from an organisation perspective, I finished the Nile in April, had a month back in Australia, then a month in Uganda, having an initial crack at writing the book, then came back. So I really wasn't back here till August. And then I started it on the 16th of December. So it wasn't that long, but it was a lot simpler to organise. And obviously doing it on home turf is so easy. There was no permissions needed, visas or anything like that. So the organising was really around, one, I needed a different type of kayak to what I normally paddle. So it was just working out what to get for that. How to get into the source, because it is sort of a fairly decent bit of bush bashing and walking there. So I needed help doing that initial walking section. And then it was really a case of sort of putting it in the GPS. I had most of the kit having done the last trip. And then the one thing I did do was just set up with a friend, like having someone who I checked in with every day. So, and then if I didn't check in, we had agreed set of protocols over, after a certain period of time, what they would do and who they would contact. And I had things like my GPS, which I could message on, and I had a sat phone from the last trip. So it was it was a lot easier to organise.
Yeah, to be fair, it sounds like a bit of a breeze. Like, I know it's not, but in comparison to what you went through for the Nile, like, it being in your own country, not needing visas, not having to try and deal with all of those logistics. So it does sound a lot simpler. But tell us about the getting to the source of the Murray River. You said that sounded you said it was quite challenging.
Yeah, because it's, it is in the bush, and it was fascinating. It's literally this sort of pole in the middle of the bush. So I engaged an expedition leader, Richard Swain, who does rafting and trips and leads adventures with school kids and all sorts of things, and is an amazing source of information, having lived in the sort of Kosciuszko National Park in the region for a long time. So the idea originally was we'd walk for a couple of days by the river until we could put in some whitewater kayaks. But unfortunately, the water levels were too low. So it was just going to be the hiking bit. And then I just had to miss a short section, and I just got in my flat water kayak. So there was Richard and myself, and then one of his other guides, and then a chap called Mike Bremers, who has quite literally written the book when it comes to Murray Darling Adventures, which is what it's called. And he came along as well for the hike in, and he's been to the source before. So Richard dropped us off, and we hiked into the source across Kawambat Flats. And I don't know how he found this, because it was literally most of it was track and then going across some sort of meadows. And then we're going through the bush, and it was going along, and you can't really see what's ahead of you. And then suddenly there is this pole, which has got a couple of canisters at the top of it. And when you open the canisters, there's a couple of notebooks in there. So everyone who goes to the source can write in the notebook, which I think is just really cool.
I love that idea. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was what was slightly less brilliant was then when he sort of was having a look in the bush around us, and there was a rather large black snake curled up there. So I was slightly less excited. He's taking photos, and I'm just backing away slowly. It's let's get out of here. I hate snakes.
What were the conditions like? Because I've been in Australia since the beginning of January for a couple of months in Melbourne, and the weather's been insane, from the haze coming in from the fires, and then we've had thunderstorms and rain, and 30-40 degree days down to 16-degree days. What was the weather and the conditions for you while you were out on your expedition?
Oh, it was a real mix. So where we were at the start, it was pretty warm, but not crazy warm. And after that initial sort of getting to the source, we camped, and Richard and the guy came and joined, and we had then a couple of days literally going through thick bush and climbing up rocks and walking with water up to our bums and things like that. And then, but it was quite closed in there, so it was super hot, but not, when you've got the water around you, it's not too bad. And then had one day with some pretty hot hiking, and then once I got in the kayak, and from then I was solo, I had everything from 8 degrees to 45. And airless days to winds that stopped me in my tracks, and downpours and thunderstorms and smoke haze. And then as I got closer to South Australia, because I haven't been able to put crops in for a while, you then had these massive dust storms that would come up. So it was, I had a bit of everything. It certainly felt like it.
What was the biggest sort of challenge for this expedition?
There were probably a few. I think from the physical side of things, it was tough in the first 4 days of hiking was brilliant. It was a real adventure. And then I got in the kayak, and there just wasn't much water, and they weren't releasing a massive amount at the time above the Hume. So I would get in, I would kayak 50, maybe 100 meters, get out, drag the kayak across the real shallow bits and the rocks, and then get back in and do another 100 meters and get out. So I would be getting in and out of the kayak 20 times a day. And of course it was super slow progress. So it was mentally hard as well, because it was just not making progress, and this constant get in and drag. And, some of it was, you then got some slightly fast moving bits where the little bit of water that there is going down these chutes, and you've got trees in the way, so you can't kayak down there, because if you get trapped up against the trees, obviously it's not going to end well. So it was sort of quite technical and slow going. And Christmas Day was a real low moment. I did sort of think to myself afterwards, I think this is one of my least favorite Christmas days. So I'd spent the whole day dragging the kayak and this, as I say, this ongoing slow going, and then I found a decent camp spot and had some dinner, but then I had no mobile reception, so I couldn't contact anyone, I couldn't message anyone and see what was going on. And I just finished dinner and was sitting by my tent, and then this brown snake comes around the corner. I have never moved so fast in my life, grabbing the GPS as I went. So yeah, that starting point was pretty tough going. But once I got past the Hume, so it's a big reservoir and dam, they were then releasing water, and it got a lot better from there. It was faster moving. And then it was probably more, while it was, it was the long days in the kayak, it was more of the mental challenge, because it's just the monotony of it, and doing it solo, like coming into it, I haven't, I've done wilderness camping, but it's always been with people. Now I was doing it solo. So there was just that little bit of apprehension around that. That was all fine. But then, yeah, it was just the monotony of it. Just get in the kayak, anything from 9 to 13 hours. Get out, camp, and do it all again.
How did you deal with like that frustration and the monotony and being solo? Like, was there anything that you were doing specifically to help you sort of deal with those feelings and those thoughts?
There were a few. I was trying everything. It really was. It's like, and it's all this stuff that I preach when I do my talking. And there was one day I really wanted to cry, and it's like, no, Sarah, because when you talk to people, you talk about, it's not what happens to you, it's your attitude and your response. It's like, no, you can't cry. You've got a choice with this, and you chose to do this, so you got to get on with it. There were little things I was doing, with the slow progress, was just breaking it down into, okay, let's see what Ks I'm going, and just focus on get to Albury, or when things got moving a bit, and it was just the monotony and just seeming like it was taking forever, is breaking it down into those smaller chunks. For anything that just seems massively overwhelming, it's breaking into something that isn't quite so overwhelming and you can handle. And there were times I was literally, it would come down to, okay, I would only let myself look at the GPS and the distances every half an hour. So it was just focus on the next half an hour and when my food breaks would be. With the monotony, there was things I listened to a lot of podcasts and audio books, and that helped sort of with the distraction, just finding the things to break it down and distract myself.
How did it work with regards to resupply while you were out there? Was the river going past sort of towns where you could get, food and all that stuff that you needed, or were you having to get dropped off?
No, this was what made this thing so much easier. There were towns all the way. So the most, I could have probably hit a resupply point every 4 days if I'd needed it. Sometimes, a lot less than that. And I would just I was breaking it down into stretches of anything between 6 to 9 days. So I'd carry probably 6 days of supplies at a point, and I might need just a few more to then get me through if it was a longer stretch. So it was pretty straightforward to do. And the kayak I had plenty of storage. And I just got, to make it easier for shopping, I ate the same, and I don't mind doing that for long periods, or just eating the same stuff. So I knew when I'd go into a supermarket, I would just get the same thing each time. So I'd never forget stuff that I needed. It just made it really easy to resupply.
What about the highlights? It must have been a phenomenal journey. What you must have seen traveling down the river, it's such a different view of the world. Yeah, if you could talk through just some of the highlights.
Yeah, it is. That's what I love the Nile and love this. You just get this really different perspective, and you're just doing it at this sort of slow, relaxed kind of pace. And I tell you what, being, it wasn't a great time of year to do it because it was the holidays. And as it happens, I think for a lot of inland Australians, water skiing and wakeboarding is a very, very popular pastime. And you've got all these amazing sort of free camp spots, and everyone rocks up there and puts their speedboats in. So I was having to deal with, for some sections, like lots of speedboats and jet skis and everything else, which certainly took away some of the, sort of the zenness of it all. But then when I got below one of the locks, suddenly it was away from all the holiday makers and just these beautiful forests on either side, and just quiet and peace, and just getting to see the wildlife, all the kangaroos and the wallabies and the birds coming down, the pelicans and eagles, and just such variety, and seeing them all in the natural habitat. was just beautiful. And some of the camp spots, you get these they're basically like sandy beaches, and you sort of rock up there, and I got it to have these sand beaches to myself, and make camp and go for a swim and then get dinner ready. It was absolutely beautiful. And just being able to have time and space to do some of that sort of thinking, and as much, we always try and avoid being bored, but I think there can be a really valuable time to do that deeper thinking and looking back on things. I got to really reflect on my Nile trip and extract more kind of lessons and thoughts around that. So yeah, it was really good. And then it's the people. Yeah, so I think one of the highlights of the Nile trip, and it was exactly the same with this one. And I think we hear over and over again from adventurers, it's the kindness of strangers, people who go out of their way to help. There were people who, this guy Dave, who runs a canoe hire place in Albury, and he very kindly sent one of his guys to help me get round the weir, the dam at Albury, and then let me store my kayak at his place, and even gave me a room for a couple of nights, and other people, some fishermen who came up to me, and they're like, oh, you must be really thirsty. Do you want a cold drink? And they suddenly produced this bottle, like 1 litre bottle of cold fizzy water. And it was a really hot day. And I was just like, oh, I was so happy. But they had gone out of their way to come and give that to me. And, and this other two cousins, Joe and Tony, who cooked me dinner and gave me water and gave me food. There were just so many examples of that. And that's, yeah, it's such a highlight, and it's that real heartwarming stuff.
What do you think the biggest lesson was that you learned from this expedition? Very, very different from the Nile. Were you going out with anything in particular that you were wanting to learn, or was it just the opportunity to get out and experience the river?
Yeah, it really was the opportunity to get out and experience the river. To do something in Australia, to see more of Australia, and also, this was a time to test myself with a solo challenge. The Nile had been with people, all the the adventure holidays I've done before, I've often been, sort of more organised. I've done less of the stuff on my own. So this was a chance, to try and do something solo and see how I found that. There was, the people on the Nile were great, but there were also challenges when you are dealing with people, in that they've got different ways of doing things and different approaches, how fast people want to go, or how they want to, how long they want to spend in the kayak. And I was looking forward to doing something, being an only child. I prefer to sometimes do things on my own, and I can go at my pace and stop when I want and start where I want. So I was just interested to sort of do that.
Yeah, do you know, I totally get that, and it's also about being selfish. Like, I want to start. This is how I'm feeling. You don't have to take anybody else's thoughts into consideration. You can just focus on yourself.
Yeah.
So last time we spoke, you were working and you'd left your job in risk management. Are you back working again? What's happening on that front?
Yeah, so I'm back working. So rather brilliantly, where I was working before, they've put me on a fixed term contract. So I'm there. I'm just doing 3 days a week at the moment, because I really want to finish my book on the Nile adventure. And so I'm just doing 3 days a week. I was doing a little bit of speaking work before Christmas as well, but I'm just kind of putting that on hold for the moment to finish the book, and then thinking about sort of bigger picture, what's next. And this trip sort of gave me an opportunity to start to think about that. So I really want to get more into the humanitarian space. So I'm investigating going and doing a master's. I never thought I'd go back to uni. So looking at a master's in international affairs, as well as sort of thinking about what would be next adventure-wise.
Oh God, fantastic! And how is book writing going? Like, have you have you got the structure? How many chapters are you in? Like, what's going on?
Well, I did. So as I said, I went back to Uganda, and I had all my diaries, because I just thought it'd be easier to go back there, where one, I'm not distracted. Two, it's also where a lot happened, and it really had become a second home for me there. And I kind of did the whole vomit on a page and just went blah on everything that happened. then started to come back and do a bit more of the editing, bringing in more information, say about the countries I went through. So I was sort of going through that edit and then beginning to submit to some publishers. And one came back with some feedback, some positive feedback, but they said, look, they felt that it needed a little bit more of an emotional hook. So now I'm just working out what that is. So I've already got sort of like 80,000 words, which will need to get trimmed down. So there's, it's a lot there. It's now weaving in some more of the lessons and some more of the kind of the emotional side of things and the emotional hook. I think we've got about 23 chapters at the moment, but that will probably change. So it's been good. I'm enjoying it. I enjoy writing.
It's probably a really interesting or fascinating process to go through, to actually have the opportunity to reflect back on the journey, what you've learned. And it's also, it's reliving it. It was an incredible experience that you went through. And so it's probably a lot of fun. Like I know it's not fun all the time, but...
No, but you see, we're sort of doing edit after edit after edit. But it was really nice to go through and relive the whole thing, relatively soon after. And because then I started doing the speaking and focusing more on resilience and mindset. So then there's some of the things, through that I drew more out about the trip. So having done the speaking, I can now then feed some of that back into the book because I've had that time to draw out more of the lessons. So I think it will potentially make it a bit more interesting, or just, a bit more valuable to the readers, as opposed to, I got up, I paddled, I stopped. I avoided hippos. Awesome.
I mean, you mentioned earlier at the beginning I suppose it's looking to almost like redirect or looking for like the next challenge or the next opportunity. You talked about doing a source to see on each continent. Have you thought more about that? Have you got some ideas about where you go next? Have you got any adventures sort of in the pipeline, either for well, I know you've just completed one in 2020, or another one in 2020, or is it, what's happening there?
I'll probably take a little bit of a break for now. I'm definitely want to do the source to see on each continent. I was toying with the idea at the start of, do I do the longest on each one? I think about 1,000 Ks into this one, I'm like, no, not a chance. Not unless someone comes and throws extraordinary large amounts of money at me. The thought of doing, that would involve over 6,000 kilometer rivers. And as I say, after about 1,000 Ks into this one, the thought of that just made me want to cry. So I would just rather go and do some, some more interesting rivers, or maybe ones that haven't been done at all or as much. So there are some rivers up through the Stans, like sort of Uzbekistan and around that region, which would be quite interesting to do. While it has been done a bit more, I'd love to do the Volga. So that's what I'm thinking about doing in Russia. So I definitely want to do that, but I also want to do some other non-just river stuff, because I am a bit more of an ocean person. So I really love the idea of doing Talisker, or one of the ocean rows. So I'm sort of chatting to some people who've done, a friend of mine's just done that, so I'm having a chat with him. Something ocean based. So no shortage of ideas. It's time and money is probably the more challenging factor there.
I was going to say that it's always those factors. It is literally time and money. Yeah, there's so many incredible challenges out there. I was looking on your website and I noticed that you headed off to Nepal. I'm not quite sure when you did the Annapurna base camp.
Yeah.
When did you do that adventure?
I think that was 2006. So that was a little bit more sort of self-organized. Work had been crazy, or maybe it's 2007. It'd been nuts. So I just booked my flight to Kathmandu and was like, I want to do Tibet and Nepal. Got to Kathmandu and found a tour into Tibet, because you can't really go solo there. So that was like an overland trip into Tibet. And then lined up a guide to take me into Annapurna base camp, because again, that whole not always playing well with others. I didn't want to be slowed down by a group, and I was quite constricted on time. So it's like, right, let's get the guide and we'll go in and out in a Sherpa, although I probably didn't really need that. And that was I love that, going into the base camp. The hike in there was just beautiful, like those mountains there, and in base camp itself, just you're in this bowl surround. You haven't been there?
I've never been to Nepal, but it sounds incredible.
Oh, it was just breathtaking. So yeah, you've got this incredible bowl that you're kind of in the middle of a base camp, and some 8,000-meter peaks. It was absolutely stunning, and that's something I'd love to go back and do some more treks in Nepal.
Absolutely. After your adventures, like especially after, finishing the Nile and the Murray River, do you suffer from, or have you suffered from like adventure blues once, you've completed a challenge, an expedition, and you've been out there for quite a long time?
I haven't actually. I mean, when I did the Nile, I think because it was a long time, like on the go for about 6 months, but in Africa 7 months. And there were this wasn't on the go all the time. So there would be do a section stop, organize the next one. But there've been a lot to deal with on the way, and constant uncertainty and all the challenges that were thrown up. Well, I was really happy and I loved it. There was a certain amount of relief at the end of it. And I was, I do quite like structure and routine. So it was nice to then get back to some structure and routine and, my own, it was nice to get back to my own bed and my apartment and Bondi and all of that. And, and it was the same on this one, because it was tough, as I say, sort of probably more mentally than physically on this last Murray trip. So again, I was quite ready to get to the end, as much as I loved it. I was, so it hasn't, I've only been back 2 weeks, but was happy to start earning some money again, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so Sarah, we're going to mix things up here now a little bit. I'm going to be asking you some quick fire questions. So my questions may be quick, but your answers don't have to be. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Are you a morning or an evening type of person?
Morning, definitely. I tend to, I was probably one thing coming back off the Nile, and I was worried that I might have had some kind of adrenal fatigue, because I was just suddenly having to sit for a long time, pretty much until I went away on the Murray trip, was sleeping 9 hours a night, sometimes 10 hours, and then not really waking up feeling refreshed. So whereas I would normally be a morning person, so I'd be before the Nile, my training, either if I was with the squad, paddling with the squad, then that would be getting up at 4:10, which is ridiculous. But anyway, I always questioned it at the time, but loved it when I did it. And if I was going to the gym, then I'd be getting up 4:30, 4:45. When I came back from the Nile, I was struggling to do that as much. It was getting a bit later, but I love the mornings, and I love, being out in the water and seeing the sun come up, or if I'm down at the gym at the surf club, looking at Bondi as the sun comes up. And for me, then it's just, I've done it at the start of the day, and I feel good for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Did you have adrenal fatigue, or did it sort itself out?
I think it sorted itself. I was really worried actually going into the Murray that if it was some kind of adrenal fatigue, that this was just going to make it worse. And I did get my, I had cortisol levels checked and it was fine. I had all my bloods checked and they were all fine. I think just protein in the blood had come back a tiny bit low, but otherwise everything was normal. So then it was like, well, is it sort of more reproductive hormones? Is it perimenopause, or what is going on? But as I've got back from the Murray, my energy levels seem to be normal again, thankfully, which I'm really, really pleased about.
Yeah, absolutely. What time do you go to bed?
If I'm doing this in the crazy early starts, then it would be 8:30. Even now I'm like trying to get myself, so I'm slowly getting back to doing the early starts at the moment. I think I'm kind of getting up around 5. Haven't quite started back with the squad yet. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll start with them. So then I'll go to bed. Yeah, it's pretty early. Like my party days are definitely behind me. Let's put it that way.
Never say never.
Long gone.
Do you have like quite a structured? Do you have like a morning routine, or quite a structured when you wake up what you do?
Yeah, it is pretty much like if I'm going to the gym, then it's up. I've got everything ready. I've done all my food prep from the night before. I go to the gym. I love doing my workout programs. I mean, I did spend a few years as a personal trainer. So I have in my notebook, I'd probably say I am quite obsessive about all these things, but I have my programs planned out, and I'll make notes of all my programs, and then it's, go to work, blah, 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 come home, get food, do my food prep, whether it's kayaking, then it's all very timed to try and minimize, maximize sleep and minimize time to get to the training session, get on the water and then get to work. So, yeah.
Yeah. What do you do to rest and relax?
Um, catching up with mates. That's definitely one thing I really enjoy doing. Going having brunch and coffees and things like that. Binging on Netflix, I definitely do that. And having been away, having had like a couple of big trips away, I've got quite a lot to catch up on. So that's kind of one thing I do. Yeah, that would be probably the main things I do. Listen to some podcasts, little bit of not as much meditation as I would like, but I will do a little bit of meditation.
So I was going to say that leads me perfectly on to my next question, which is like, do you have like a favorite movie, or what would you binge watch on Netflix? Like, what are your go-to shows?
Oh, it'll be a real mix. So I'm doing a series. I've just finished, like, there was a recent season from the American Shameless, bit of Suits, movies. I love I quite like all the action stuff, particularly if it's sort of military kind of action movies. I do enjoy those, or the gritty dramas, like on the ABC here. They have some good series. So yeah, a little bit of a mix.
What about music? Do you have a favorite type of music or genre, album or song that like really resonates for you?
There's a genre. I listen to it. I love the Aussie hip hop. I listen to a bit of chill house, rock. Occasionally go back to a bit of 80s, but not often. But there was one song, and I was actually asked this on a radio interview, that it was 3 songs, 3 movies, 3 books. And on the songs, one of them was Coldplay's Up and Up. And it was a real pivotal one when I was in Khartoum in Sudan. And it was just, everything was just taking a long time to get organized, which is, fair enough. But I was just getting quite frustrated. And I think it's one of those things when you're down or things are difficult, you listen to the lyrics of a song, and when you're up, you just hear the music. And because I was just like a bit down on things, I was listening to the lyrics, and it sort of talks about emptying the ocean with a teaspoon and just get with the flow and keep on going. And it just, when you just hear it, it just speaks to you, and it just flipped it for me strangely. And suddenly I was like, yeah, okay, it's just got to be patient with it and just sit with it and go with the flow, and we're going to get going. So that was probably one song that does stand out.
What about a book? Are you currently reading a book at the moment, or is there a book that you've read which has been quite life-changing for you?
I tell you what I read on the last trip, which I loved, and that was Ros Savage's book about her Pacific expedition. And I tell you what, that also helped with the Murray trip. When you hear about other people, and listening to your podcast and the people that come on, you suddenly get this different perspective. Like, you feel like what you're doing is hard, and then you listen to what other people you've done, and you go, oh, come on, suck it up, princess. It's not that bad. You're not rowing on your own solo, where you cannot get off the boat, across the Pacific Ocean, dealing with ridiculous weather conditions, equipment failures, and goodness knows what else. So I really enjoyed Ros's book.
Oh, Ros is amazing. Like, honestly, she's like one of my like girl crushes. Like, I had just what she's done and what she's achieved, like, blows my mind totally.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, I love that. Was probably the last one. I really enjoyed that one.
What about food? Like, what do you eat in normal life, and what would you eat on expeditions? Do you have like a favorite type of food that you sort of is your go-to?
It's generally relatively healthy, although I do have a sweet tooth. It's usually porridge in the morning, or eggs, and then salads and things at lunchtime. I've found myself moving more and more away from meat, so I'm not pushing myself into a box of I am vegetarian or I am vegan, because I don't want to put that pressure on myself. And kind of, if I feel like having a steak, I'll have it, but it's pretty rare. So it's just eating lots of vegetables and roast vegetables or salads, and beans, a lot of beans as the protein source. So that's kind of what I'm having now on the expedition. I mean, the nice thing about this last one was that it was it was easier to get the food that I'm familiar with. So again, I stuck with the porridge, although I loaded it up with peanut butter and Nutella, and a bit of honey in the morning. So that really set me up to low release and quick release energy and some fats and so on. And then snack would be muesli bar and a nut bar, probably an apple at some point. And lunch, I was having the packets of tuna, which has got sort of stuff mixed in with them, and a wrap. And then in the evening, rice, and throw on some parmesan, like the long life parmesan that you can get to try and give it a little bit of flavour. Yeah. And that was it, really.
I was going to say, so my staple, what I had recently was the porridge with the Nutella and the peanut butter, but I didn't even think about adding honey. And now you said that, I'm like, right, I'm making that the triple: honey, Nutella, and peanut butter on porridge. That's so going to be good. I'm going to try that. Sounds epic. Would you say you're more mountains or more beach?
Beach.
Yeah.
This is the woman that lives at Bondi. Yeah, and I grew up like in the UK, growing up there down in Sussex. We had my grandmother and my great uncle both had beach huts down in Hove. So my summer holidays would just be at the beach all the time, and I was just in the water constantly. And when I was about 12, I sort of started getting into windsurfing. And yeah, so that's where I grew up, was at the beach.
Oh, love it. And then this is the final one.
Yeah.
What are the words that you try and live your life by? Like, do you have is it like a motivational quote, or just words that really resonate, that maybe you've got stuck up somewhere that helps you to make the choices and the direction that you want to go in?
Oh gosh, I try and think. There's sort of, a few that I have, as I go, when I'm on the expeditions, there's various mantras like, control the controllables, and trying to focus on what I can control and not the things that I can't. For life sort of type ones, there was one by Maya I can never get her name right, Maya Angelou, and she, let me get this one right. Success is liking what you do, how you do, as I say, it's one I live by. What you do, how you do. Let me look it up. We might need to edit
Yeah. I was going to say, look it up, and I'll delete the pause, so it will flow in the conversation.
Yeah, so one of my favourites, sort of probably more around life, is one by Maya Angelou, and it is: success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And I think if you can get to a point of doing that, then yeah, that's kind of my goal. And I think, that, say, like what you do, there's going to be all sorts of things that make that up. And how you do it, being true to your values, and to yourself. So that's one of my favorites.
Oh, I love that. And I just said mentally in my head, I just went, yes. That's what that resonates with me. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I think if you can do that, you've got it. You've nailed it.
So Sarah, I'd love for you to leave our listeners, well, actually, two things. One, where's the best place for people to find more information out about you? And then second, I'd love for you to leave our listeners with some final words of wisdom and advice to encourage them to go on more adventures and go and explore more of the world.
Okay, so to follow me, so I've changed everything before with Paddle the Nile. So now I've got a website, which is sarahdavis.co, and that's SarahDavis.co. On Instagram, which is probably my main social media channel, that one is Sarah Paddles, or one word. Yeah, so that's probably best place to connect. And words of wisdom, I just do it. To quote Nike, it's, if you've got an idea or something you want to do, just start looking into it. Don't wait for the perfect time, or things to be completely lined up, or worrying about, you need to know everything about whatever that expedition or the trip is. You can work it out. It's just start taking action and move forward to whatever that thing is you want to do, and to not let the self-doubt that, you know, will creep up, to just try and ignore that and just go do it.
Absolutely. Love that so much. And Sarah, what I'll do is I'll make sure I put all the links to your new website and your social media channels so that people can follow along with you. And, you know, please do keep us updated with future challenges. I'm excited to see what they're going to be, and I know other people will be as well. But thank you so much for coming back on Tough Girl Podcast Extra to share more of your incredible journey.
Oh, no, Sarah, thanks so much for having me back on. It's great to chat.
Hey tribe, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Sarah. It's always fantastic to catch up with our previous guests. For those of you who are brand new to the podcast, my name is Sarah Williams. I'm the host of the Tough Girl Podcast and Tough Girl Podcast Extra, which is all about motivating and inspiring you while at the same time increasing the amount of female role models in the media. There's actually around 300 episodes that you can go back and listen to, and I've interviewed a whole range of women of all ages, all backgrounds, all shapes and sizes, doing a whole variety of different challenges. Just to give you a couple of examples, this year we've spoken with Christina Palton, who's a Swedish ultra runner who ran alone through Iran to overcome fears and prejudice, which was a 1,144-mile journey of trust. We spoke with Chris Fagan and her extraordinary quest to the South Pole, which she did with her husband, 570 miles, 48 days, 9 hours a day, with minus 40 temperatures, pulling a 220-pound sled, which they did on skis. We spoke with Helen Langridge, who shared more about cycling Le Jog solo and unsupported in 2015 and cycling 30,000 kilometers around the world in 2017. And Helen is actually going after the world record this year, so it's going to be an incredible journey to start with. We've spoken with Fenella Langridge, who's a professional triathlete, over the 70.3 distance. Beth Whitman running her first marathon at 50, completing the snowman track in Bhutan, and training for the Four Deserts Challenge in 2020. That is just a tiny example of some of the women that I've spoken to. So if you want to find out more, then please do go and visit toughgirlchallenges.com, which is basically like the central hub. On the website, you can find more information out about our previous guests. You can go and visit the blog. You can find out more about the different challenges that I've done, from the Lycian Way, the Overland Track, the Camino Portuguese, Pacific Coast Highway, the Appalachia Trail, the Marathon des Sables. There are videos on there. There is information in books as well. So I've written a couple of ebooks which you can download. There's Tough Girl Top Tips, life lessons from the Tough Girl podcast. There is also the Marathon des Sables. So if you're thinking about doing a big challenge, it doesn't necessarily have to be the Marathon des Sables. It's a really, really sort of, obviously, I think it's a really useful book. But basically, my goal with the book was to provide you with all the information that you could possibly need to do the Marathon des Sables, but it also tells you more about my story, my journey from city worker to adventurer. Hopefully, it will entertain you, inform you, educate you, inspire you, and it will also help you to go after your own personal challenges. Yeah, I've also written a book about climbing Kilimanjaro. One of the reviews is this: Kilimanjaro Tips for the Top. It's an inspirational account of one writer's quest to push herself to the limits and get the most out of life, filled with fun facts about one of the highest peaks in the world. This book is a must-read for anyone wishing to partake on an incredible storybook-esque adventure. This book certainly doesn't skimp on the details, providing a day-to-day account of the journey so that anyone willing to do the same trip will feel completely and utterly prepared. I would also recommend it to anyone who wants to be inspired by the sheer strength of will of the author. This is truly a story of perseverance and strength of character. Climbing Mount Kilimanjaro is no small feat, and the book acts as a tribute to this accomplishment. Strewn among the helpful tips and factual information is a story that will inspire even the laziest of couch potatoes to get up off the sofa and make something of their lives. A truly inspiring tale about the importance of setting goals and overcoming personal challenges. So all of those books are available on Amazon. Yeah, so fantastic. So please do go check that out. So toughgirlchallenges.com. Big thank you for giving up your time to listen to the Tough Girl podcast. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a review if you want to support the mission and increase the amount of female role models in the media. Please do go and visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast. Support the mission, pay it forward, donate a $2, $5 a month. It really does make a massive, massive difference. Have an incredible day wherever you are, whatever you are doing. Give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it. You've got one life, you've got to live it. So take the action today. Take that first step now. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. All right. Take care. Lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.